I want to introduce my assistant administrator, Laura Fidorowicz, who's going to talk about Delaware County treatment courts. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. So, drug treatment court was started in 2008. So we are currently in our 11th year of drug treatment court, and it is a specialty court specifically created for individuals who have been arrested or violated probation as a result of their substance use issues. So treatment court is a pretty intense program. Individuals who are on treatment court are on the program for 24 to 30 months. So if an individual was arrested for something that traditionally maybe they would get 12 months probation for, if they agree to go into treatment court, they are agreeing to commit to be intensively supervised by probation and the court system for 24 to 30 months. So we have a lot of people on our team. So our team consists of a common court pleas judge. Our current judge is Judge Frank Hazel. There's also an assistant district attorney who is on our team, as well as Crozier represents our treatment provider, our 3 probation officers, our CRS program, the Office of Behavioral Health, and we all meet together every single week as a team to talk about every single person who is involved in the program. How are they doing in terms of probation? How are they doing in terms of treatment? Are they successful at this time? If they're not successful, what needs to be done in order to help them be successful? So it is voluntary to enter into treatment court if you have been arrested or violated probation, but there are some rules around going into the program. So the person has to be willing to be intensively supervised for the period of time that treatment court is. So 24 to 30 months with intensive supervision by Delaware County Adult Probation and Parole. It has to be approved by the district attorney's office, and they have to agree to participate in all recommendations of the treatment provider. So if the recommendation on the table is to go to inpatient rehab for however long that is recommended, and then following inpatient rehab, go to intensive outpatient, they have to be willing to follow every treatment recommendation that is made in order to participate in the program. If the application is not accepted into the program, then they will just have their case transferred and it will go through common pleas as it normally would. So individuals must be a resident of Delaware County. They must have pending criminal charges or probation violations. They have to have a need for substance use treatment. So if their primary issue is, let's say, mental health issues, then they may be referred to our mental health specialty court as opposed to our drug treatment court. And they have to be willing to do the program because it is voluntary. So there are some things that would disqualify someone from being eligible to participate in treatment court. So first and foremost, violent offenders are ineligible to participate in the program. So any acts of sexual violence, any crimes against children, any case that has a mandatory minimum sentence, those individuals are ineligible to participate. If the person has severe and persistent mental illness, they are likely not appropriate for drug treatment court. So that is an individual that we may say needs to be referred to our mental health treatment court, or it's a person that they're going to end up having their case heard in common pleas and they will receive their treatment upon release from prison. If a person has previously gone through treatment court before and has either successfully completed or been terminated, they cannot go through it again. So it is kind of like a one-time shot, and you either do it and you're great, or you're going to have to look at other options for you. So there are two different tracks of treatment court. So we have track 1 and track 2. Track 1 and track 2, yeah. I keep looking at Gina, who is in the back of the room, who is going to present in a little bit, because she is also on the treatment court team, and I am the newbie on the team, so I am probably the least qualified to come up and present on it, but I'm doing my best. So track 1 is for individuals who will enter in a no contest plea at the end of their successful completion. They can have their charges dismissed and their records expunged. And then the other, track 2, those individuals have to enter into a guilty plea upon successful completion. And so their guilty plea is for 30 months of intermediate punishment. So 30 months of intensive supervision through the courts. So should any of these individuals, let's say, not be successful in the treatment court process, then you're looking at people who are track 2 may be more likely to be sentenced to state prison time, whereas people who are track 1 may be more likely to be sentenced to county prison time. So there's 5 phases of treatment court, and so this is kind of the kind of meat and potatoes of it. So the first 90 days is probably the most intensive of it. So that is when individuals are having to present at probation more often. They may have to present, 2 or 3 times a week. They also have to present for random drug screens, both at probation and at their treatment facility. They have to complete 90 meetings in 90 days. They have to find a sponsor. They have to complete, any assessments and all assessments that have been recommended by the treatment team. Once they kind of complete their first 90 days of the program, is then just kind of, the longer they're in it, the more they kind of get to graduate. So every phase that they graduate from, so from phase 1 through phase 5, there are rewards involved in that. So there's incentives to do well. It's not just about, if you complete this program, you can have your charges dismissed and your record expunged, or you can have your charges decreased and, maybe take it from a felony level offense to a misdemeanor. There's also other things that they're granted as they make progress. So every graduation of a phase, they may get a gift card to Wawa, or you've graduated to a phase, so you can go on a trip with your family. Maybe that trip is down the shore, but under typical circumstances, when these individuals are involved in treatment court, it's not just as easy as like if you or I want to pick up and go down the shore for the weekend. I need permission from someone, and there's lots of steps I have to take in order to be able to get that permission. So I was at treatment court review before I came here today. 2 of the individuals would like to take a trip. So what we talked about in review team today was, did they write their vacation safety plan and everything that's on that plan? What would you do if you feel like you want to relapse while you're away? It's not as easy as just call my sponsor. More than that. But there's a whole 2-page thing that they have to fill out if they want to take a trip somewhere. And that's to make sure that whenever they're away, they are going to be able to continue to be successful. So there's a lot of accountability in the program. So I had mentioned that we meet as a team every week. So as people graduate through the phases, they don't have to come to court every week, but the newer they are, the more often they have to come. So there are some people that we talk about them every single Tuesday. We talk about, how's their week been, what's going on with them, have they had negative urine drug screens, have they had positive urine drug screens. But a lot of what we talk about too is what does it mean to do well? So, they're working, when they're going to their treatment, they are, working on some of the issues that lead them into substance use behaviors. So, if I have a history of grief and loss, and that's the reason, one of the basic reasons why maybe I use substances, in my therapy, I better be working on the grief and loss, because if I'm not, then the likelihood that I'm going to relapse is going to be higher. So we talk about that a lot, that Laura is really working on her deeper issues. She's really hitting her grief. She's talking about her trauma, and so that is an indication to the rest of the team that Laura is going to continue to graduate through the phases. Laura is going to be successful in this program, and Laura is probably going to be a treatment court graduate. But if I'm not doing all of those things, if I am, as an example, I report to my probation officer that I am going to college, and I tell my probation officer that I'm going to class every single time it's scheduled, and then my PO finds out that for the last 6 weeks I haven't stepped foot in a classroom, I'm going to get a sanction. So that sanction could be, why is it important to be truthful to my probation officer? It could be writing an essay about that and then getting up in front of everybody at treatment court and reading said essay. That, I think, for me would probably be the worst punishment I could get. But sometimes it's, you're going to have to go to 16 hours of community service, so you just lost your weekend. Or maybe I'm going to have to go spend the weekend in jail. So, depending on the nature of my violation is dependent upon the nature of my punishment then. So, just like the criminal justice system, if I get arrested for something, if I get pulled over, I'm going to get a ticket. But if I have all kinds of drugs in my car, I'm probably going to jail. So sanctions can be up to and including termination from court. So, it is maybe constantly breaking the rules and constantly getting sanctions, they will be listed for termination. And so then that just kind of looks like, you're no longer involved in the treatment court process. Your case is you're going to be sentenced, and whatever that outcome is for you. So for some individuals, they're sentenced to probation. Some individuals, they are sentenced to whatever's left of their time. So there are some that will result in absolute termination. So possession or delivery of drugs at a probation or treatment site. So if I'm going down to my IOP and I sell drugs while I'm there, then I can't be in treatment court. If I go down to my IOP appointment with drugs that I'm just intending to use for myself and not telling anybody else, from treatment court. There have also been individuals who have engaged in behaviors at their treatment site that has led to their termination. So, that could be, being violent with the staff, sharing information that, about myself at treatment or other people that I'm in treatment with. That's, a violation of the trust that you have in that room. If a person is arrested at any point during the treatment court process, they will be terminated. But so the vast majority, I think, of people who have gone through the treatment court process have completed successfully. So what they have to do to complete successfully is participate for at least 24 months of the program. So 30 months is the outside time frame, 24 months is the minimum. So as soon as they hit 24 months is really when the entire team is looking at, is this person ready for graduation? Have they completed their treatment goals? They completed IOP, they still have a sponsor, maybe they're sponsoring people of their own, because there are quite a few people that we talk about at review that are so far along in the process that they are sponsoring people now. So you get to kind of see from the very beginning to kind of where they are today, the progress that they continue to make. They don't have any relapses in the 6 months prior to their graduation. They've met all their treatment goals, and they created a graduation plan. So, some stats. So there is lots of national data around why drug treatment courts are successful and why they're important. I'm not going to read all that to you. I'll talk about Delco stats. So we have had 217 people graduate from treatment court in the roughly 11 years that we have been doing it. So there have been 21 graduation ceremonies. 86% of the people who have graduated from treatment court have remained arrest-free. So there's a case to be made that recidivism is decreased, right? Decreased? Reduced?
Decreased.
I don't know.
Either way.
If an individual participates in this specialty court. So that is a hugely positive thing. And of the individuals who have had children while in the treatment court process, 24 of those kids have been born drug-free. So in a time when, so my background is in prevention, drug and alcohol prevention. One of my passions is neonatal abstinence syndrome. So in a time when we are seeing more children born exposed to substances and more children born with neonatal abstinence syndrome, having 24 kids born drug-free is awesome and should totally be highlighted and celebrated. So for individuals who just go through the regular court process, who engage in substance use treatment, who are involved in the criminal justice system, but are not involved in drug treatment court, the no-show rate for substance use treatment, especially for those individuals who are involved in the criminal justice system, is abysmal. So roughly 50 to 70% of individuals do not show for their intake appointment for their substance use assessment. 40 to 80% drop out in the first 3 months of treatment. 90% drop out in the first year. So the substance use treatment system, when it intersects with the criminal justice system, when we are not working together as a team like we do with drug treatment court, we are not nearly as successful at serving these individuals to the best possible ability we have without this type of intense supervision. So the treatment goals of the drug treatment court, as well as substance use treatment goals in general, but specifically when you're working with individuals who are involved in the criminal justice system. They are involved in the criminal justice system, so their current involvement in treatment is externally motivated. They've been arrested. They're on probation. So they are externally motivated to go to treatment, otherwise I'm going to jail. The whole goal of our treatment provider is to take that external motivation and capitalize on it. So you're externally motivated to come here now, but how can I get you to a point where that external motivator became an internal motivator? What are you going to do in order to make this work long term? What happens when you're not on probation anymore? What happens when you don't have the threat of going to jail? You know, what are you going to do internally? What do you need to change internally in order to keep capitalizing on this opportunity you've been given? So individuals who are involved in drug treatment court are offered the entire array of services that we offer in substance use treatment. So intensive case management, certified recovery specialists, it can be detox, rehab, IOP, outpatient, EMDR, trying to think, some of the individuals also go to DBT. So, you know, if they need specialized treatment to address trauma, then that is obtained for them. If they need specialized treatment to meet with grief counselors or find grief support groups, that's found for them. So anything that can be done to help support them in whatever they need, those things are found. And so I've mentioned a couple times that we meet as a team. So I will say that in the past roughly 2 months since I've joined the treatment court team, it has become the favorite part of my job. And that's because this is the first time in my professional career that I have really seen all of these different systems who sometimes really have a hard time getting on the same page, really work together to do the best that we possibly can for the individuals who are coming there all the time. So I will say we don't always agree. So there have been times that, definitely, like, while I've been there, it's, probation might make one suggestion and treatment makes another, and it's like, okay, like, how can we find the happy medium between these two things, because they are drastically different recommendations. But I've also really seen how we all pull together to try and get on the same page, and how sometimes, as one of the, treatment professionals in the room, is sometimes checked by the criminal justice system of, whoa, like, you took that, like, that's DEFCON 5. Like, we weren't at DEFCON 5. We're not pushing the button yet. Take it down a notch. So looking at, like, a district attorney saying, like, oh no, I don't think we need any sanctions for this at this time. And I'm like, what? Why? Like, no, what do you mean? Like, there should be consequences for actions. And then but all of us working together to say, like, all right, like, maybe I do need to take a step back from that. Like, I was annoyed by this story, and I took it to a whole level that it didn't need to go to. So we do, really look at what are the best possible outcomes for these people? What do they need? And then, when we talk about, different systems maybe that aren't sitting at that table, how can we get them involved, and how can we make sure that this person who has, in addition to being involved with probation, might also be involved with children and youth services, how can we pull CYS in here? How can we really make sure that we're all working together so that we're not coming up with conflicting goals, that we're not coming up with, different expectations, so that, these people can be successful, because we're not putting out unrealistic expectations for people. So I think the team is really what makes this whole thing work. And so I kind of already talked about, what treatment does at the team, but there are a lot of recommendations made. Sometimes individuals who are involved in treatment court do relapse. It doesn't automatically mean that, like, oh my God, you're going back to detox tomorrow. It's really talking about, what does this look like? Was it a one-time use? Like, do they maybe need to go to a couple extra groups this week? Do they maybe need to, attend a few more meetings? Like, I need to go back to do 90 and 90. But really looking at what are the common sense recommendations that need to be made, and how can we all, make this happen so that we're not having unrealistic expectations of both the individual but also of the systems involved. Just because a person relapses, we don't necessarily automatically send them back to detox, and that doesn't make any sense. How am I going to find a detox that would even take a person that just relapsed one time? So really it's also about educating people that don't do this every single day, to say, like, these are the limitations of my system. I understand your system also has limitations, so how can we meet in the middle? And so, and I already said this, like, it works with the team is what makes this entire process work, because we are all trying to do everything that we can to be on the same page, but also recognize that each system has its own limitations. So when you are working in multiple different systems, so the behavioral health system and the criminal justice system and the legal system, and the variety of other people who are sitting at the table, all have to try and figure this out together, for the success of the people who are currently in the program.